Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Listener discretion is advised. There is just something about pushing past the holiday season and starting a new year and facing new beginnings. I believe this can be applicable in all walks of life. So it seems very appropriate that for the very first episode of Caught on the Mic 2023, my first guest of the year is a seasoned fighter with a fresh outlook on his art form. He's a light heavyweight fighter in the UFC, a member of Team Elevation, and he is facing Da Un Jung on February 4th at the Apex in Las Vegas. I'd like to welcome Devin Brown Bear Clark to the show today. I'm pretty excited. This one's been a long time coming. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Caught on the Mic. Ladies and gentlemen, in the very first episode of Caught on the Mic in the new year 2023, I am super excited because I've got Devin Brown Bear Clark on today, and I was just telling him before I started recording, I was in Aurora, Colorado in July. I watched Elevation Fight Team train. It was an awesome afternoon. I was like, man, I hadn't met Devin yet. Next thing I know, he was gone like a ghost. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Getting in that last part of camp. So yeah, it's grindy, but it's getting done.
How's the weight management going right now?
Oh, actually really good. I'm ahead of schedule with that. That's one of the things I tried to change for my last fight. Just come in at least 4 or 5 pounds lighter than normal, making that weight cut a little easier. So hopefully making my fight better.
Do you ever find yourself like getting cagey and kind of getting growly whenever you start cutting weight?
No, not really. I mean, I say that I don't, but my wife, the other people will say that I kind of do. But I think I handle it pretty well. I've been doing it since I was, it's hard to say this, but since I was like 10 years old, my mom had me in garbage bags going to sleep before, wrestling weigh-ins and stuff like that. So, I'm no stranger to the weight cut.
Cruising your Instagram earlier this afternoon, I noticed you made one other change since your last fight. You've converted to being Russian. Your new name is Devmat Clarkmanov, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
if you guys aren't following Devin on Instagram, please do. That was a funny post, man. I was just cruising it and I started laughing. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah, that was that's thanks to my roommate John Kuhneman. He's 23 and he's a little bit of a ghostwriter when I get in camp. Because I'm not like too shy or nothing, but I just don't have shit to post all the time, and I'm not very creative with coming up with stuff like that. So he kind of came up with the idea. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, sir, without any further ado, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us your origin story.
I'll try. I might bounce around a little bit, but Devin Clark. I go by Brown Bear is my fight name. And I'm in the UFC now. I've been fighting with the UFC, I think, going on 7 years. And I originally got into fighting from wrestling. I grew up wrestling, started wrestling when I was about 7 years old. Won a state title, won a junior college national title. Then after that, after I flunked out of school, I messed up and I went to school for wrestling and not actually for school. So being young and dumb. But so yeah, after I failed out of school, I was working construction and still wanted to be an athlete. So I started cage fighting in the back room of like a fitness gym. And my dad's friend, Sonny, he was the coach. And we'd pretty much go in there and spar every day. So that's kind of how I got started with MMA. We'd just go in there and spar every day. And I decided I wanted to try a fight. It's funny, my dad was actually against it. He's like, oh no, whatever. I'm like, you're the one that sent me to this team and this, that, but really he was kind of checking me, make sure I do it the right way. And he understood what I was getting into. I didn't really understand what I was getting into. I was like, it's another sport. Like what's the big deal? But now it's blood and guts on this side of it. So yeah, I started fighting and figured out that I was pretty good at it when I applied my wrestling and stuff like that. So I went undefeated all throughout my amateur fights, and then I went pro and was fighting mainly for the RFA, and I went undefeated there too. And I got signed by Dana White. He was doing that show Looking for a Fight on YouTube.
Yes.
So he was in the crowd that night, and I was fighting for an RFA title against a tough Brazilian. And I go out there and I get some like really good takedowns, like aggressive, some of the most aggressive takedowns I ever had. And the guy ends up breaking his finger, and he realized he can't really do anything anyways. So he gives up in between round 2 and 3. He doesn't answer the bell over a broken finger. I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to get signed. I didn't show enough. And then sure enough, I got signed, and some hard years later, here we are. I think I'm going in my 14th or 15th UFC fight and continuously trying to get better. At the same time, I had a daughter in 2013, and I have my wife, Megan, and we've been together since high school. I think we were juniors in high school when we started dating, and we've been together ever since. I waited 10 years to marry her, but I was always like, we're too young. But yeah, I have a wife and daughter, and we live in South Dakota. And I do my fight camps out here in Denver, Colorado now. I originally did them in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is my 3rd fight camp in Denver. So with the Elevation Fight team, I think everybody's caught up now. That's about where I am with life.
Do you find, being originally from South Dakota and rooted in South Dakota, I've lived in Iowa and Nebraska. Wrestling is
sorry to hear that.
Yes. No, I've lived all over the United States. I went to high school in Iowa and college in Iowa, and then moved to Nebraska. So I'm a transplant. So you can talk all the shit you want, man.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of it to go around.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Yeah. But do you find, as Midwesterners, wrestling is really rooted in the Midwest, including like pro wrestling, and where you're from in Sioux Falls, South Dakota? It's kind of a hub for all forms of combat sport, and sports entertainment. Did any of that play any kind of influence on you when you were a kid?
Just the traditional wrestling, folk style wrestling. I was always surrounded by that. And right now I live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is not where I grew up. I grew up in Harrisburg, South Dakota, which is a small town, or it used to be a small town. It's grown quite a bit these days. There's just smaller farm town. My mom was from there, so I had my grandparents and stuff. They were from Harrisburg, South Dakota, but lived out in the country. So that's kind of how I grew up, going around in all these little rural towns, wrestling. As a young black kid in the middle of South Dakota, going around all these tournaments every weekend, and getting all this kind of experience competing, but also meeting different people and just kind of experiencing everything from a Midwestern point of view, small town point of view. So that's kind of what I know. Yeah.
Going kind of in line with that, I remember as a kid myself, I used to move all over the United States. It was like every 2 to 4 years. And I didn't live in a small town until I was in high school. So I'd lived in Denver. Actually, I've lived in Denver. I've lived in Albuquerque. I've lived in Amarillo, Texas. I've lived in Kansas City, Missouri. I lived in Des Moines, Iowa. And in high school, I moved to a small town, and that is just a different environment altogether. In good ways and in bad ways. Yeah. And it really teaches you a lot about yourself whenever you're, kind of trying to sharpen your mindset and such. So what kind of things did you learn growing up that you still apply to your career today that has really sharpened your sense of purpose?
I mean, one of the main things, and it's a lot to do with competing and being able to be coached. And started wrestling at a young age. That's why I say wrestling is one of the best sports. Because these old wrestling coaches, they treat you like they'll treat a high school wrestler, so you pretty much just listen and put the work in. And then, especially when you're young and you start putting that work in and doing the stuff the coaches say you're doing, stop goofing around and taking it a little bit serious, then you start winning, and you realize that stuff pays off, and that's crucial. And the thing about that is that's crucial with life too. It's the little things that matter, and the dedication to everything, and giving your all when you need to, and especially when you're told to, and especially if you're trying to get a good outcome or a greater outcome than last time, something like that. You can't really do the same thing and expect different results. But growing up in a smaller town and seeing some of those things, and it not only with the wrestling, but with being in a farm community and stuff like that, seeing the farmers and how hard they work, and just the rural environment of, it rain, snow, whatever, we have to get our work done. And sometimes there's no one to help you. And the people that you might need help from, you have a close relationship with them. And so you it's a good lesson of kind of who to trust, and keep your friends close and stuff like that. And you rely on only the close people in your life, and those people that really care.
Yes, I'm glad you nailed on that, because I think that's something I learned as well. I really wonder how my life trajectory would have ended up differently if I had stayed in big cities, because learning work ethic in a small town and in a farm community is absolutely fucking huge. Yeah.
Oh, definitely, because like a neighbor or your mom's friend or if somebody needs help, you go help them. There's really no question about it. And I've grown to enjoy being the guy that can go fix something, or go help somebody out, use my truck to pull somebody out. That's my favorite. So that's one of those things, just trying to be a good person. And so I didn't grow up in the big city. So then when I started to venture out, mostly when I got to the UFC, is when I started seeing the big cities and kind of how people are in the bigger cities. A lot of times they don't care. People are just too busy. It's not that they're assholes or nothing like that. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times they're just too busy and caught up with the faster pace lifestyle of the city, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And it is really kind of amplified whenever you're in a small town and you're a nice guy. Everybody knows that you're a nice guy. But if you do some asshole shit, everybody knows you did that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, word spreads quick in a small town.
My wife is from a small town in Nebraska originally, and so it's something we commiserate on all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you end up in Albuquerque? Was that after you signed with the UFC, or was that kind of a precursor to that?
Pretty much right when I got signed to the UFC. So I got signed, and at the time I was kind of doing some 2 or 3 week camps. Actually, I was fighting for the RFA. So I was doing some 2 or 3 week camps in Vegas, and then I did one in like California, and didn't quite. It was good training, but I didn't quite gel with it and stuff like that. But when I got signed, I knew I needed to go to a big gym for a training camp, at least for a few weeks, a month, something like that. Just because the training and the size of the training partners wasn't quite there yet in Sioux Falls. So of course I had to travel, and I'm undefeated at this point. I have my sights set really high. I'm going to be the next UFC champion, this and that. And my philosophy on it was I need to learn from the best. So it was my options. In my head, my options were go train with Daniel Cormier or go train with John Jones. And I was like, okay, Cormier, I think. And then I'm like, my wrestling's pretty good. So let me go train with one of the best strikers in the world. I'm going to go train with John Jones. And that's kind of how I made my decision to go to Jackson Wink.
And what was that experience like, training with John?
It was amazing. He's helped me out over the years. I'm still friends with John. He's a bit of a mentor for me. quite a bit of a mentor, actually. And it was surreal to be in that room. So the first day I go in there, and it's like a wrestling day, and Phil Hawes is in there, Tim Kennedy's in there, John's in there. So I'm going with like Phil Hawes, and he's a really good wrestler. And I didn't go with John that first day. I felt like I had to like pass these tests,
right.
Go through these other guys first and kind of see how I train. And so I went with Phil Hawes, and it was super close round, competitive, but it was still, like teammate stuff. No one's trying to hurt anybody, stuff like that. So then the next day it's little glove sparring, and it's 9:00 in the morning. And this is my second day in Albuquerque, second day in altitude. And I think it was Wink or whoever, or Izzy, it might've been Izzy Martinez. So, all right, Devin, you want to go with John first? I'm walking to the cage. They have two big cages at Jackson Wing. I'm walking to the cage, and in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck do I do? I'm like, all right, Devin, do what you know. So I go in there, and we have some good rounds. I think I probably got like a little half-ass takedown on him, but it was super good rounds and in pretty good chemistry. And at the time he was training for Cormier. So obviously me being a little bit shorter and having the wrestling base and stuff like that ended up being a pretty good fit for me and him to be training partners. And then, of course, after that, we became friends and all that. And ended up staying at Jackson Wink for 5-6 years.
Man, that's like skillet to the fire moment, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the thing is, at the time, obviously you got John Jones in the room, but these other people were also world class. Phil Hawes, Derek Brunson, Tim Kennedy, and whoever else was there at the time. I know there's a lot of big names. So it was just a gauntlet of a room, and a really good experience, especially when you're just I just got in the UFC, so that was really good for me to see these high level fighters right away.
Did you get to like experience some of the better parts of Albuquerque when you spent time there?
Yeah, I spent a lot of times in the mountains.
Yeah, Sandia Mountains, just loving life.
That's like, for me, that's the better part of Albuquerque.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, and for a lot of years, I enjoyed the environment of Albuquerque. Like, okay, this is where I'm going to get ready for a fight. And that's the whole mentality of the city. You don't run into too many cities where like anybody's down to fight at any time. Albuquerque, yeah, that's how it is.
It's kind of crazy because when I lived there as a kid, I remember I lived in Rio Rancho, and the house that we lived in, we would walk out on the back porch in October morning, and you'd see all the balloons taking off for the balloon fiesta, snow on the mountains and the Sandias, but like it's warm outside. You're like out in a jacket. It's one of the weirdest environments ever. And I told my mom at one point in time, I said, if I ever move back someplace, I want to move back to Albuquerque, not realizing how bad some of the other aspects were. Because, of course, I'm looking at it through rose-colored glasses because I was a kid living there. But she's like, the crime is awful.
Yeah, one of the worst. Some of the worst crime in the country, along with everything else. I mean, it's a cool city for sure, but I think some of the leadership is misguided.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all.
Mm-hmm.
How did you make the transition to training in Colorado and working with the guys with Elevation Fight Team, Cody Donovan, Vinny Lopez, Zach Pounga, Curtis Blades? How did you make that transition?
So I made the decision to switch gyms after the Ian Cutelapa fight. I got beat up pretty good. So like things at Jackson Wink were changing. And there's a lot of like heavyweights, but I didn't have too many guys in my exact weight class and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of the organization of it wasn't quite there for me at my point in my career. And I'm looking at it as like, okay, I'm coming off a loss in Cutelaba. This could be my last fight in the UFC. Let me make a change. And of course, it's super drastic, and it was a really hard change to make. I had to think on it for like weeks, and have that nervous ball in my stomach, trying to talk to Coach Wink about it. And then everybody else there, it's like, it's something I did not want to do, but I felt I needed to do it so I could grow. I needed to see something else, a different kind of leadership. So I had the plan to, with my roommate now, John Kuhnman, we decided to try Denver first. There's multiple teams here that we could go check out the gym, stuff like that. We ended up at high altitude and just stayed at high altitude. I met Vinny and Cody, and I'm like, all right, the way they run things, the organization, the leadership, and the bonding of the team, I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed their philosophies and stuff like that. So I kind of made the decision without going to any other gyms. That was the first gym that I made or that I stepped at, and it's like, this is it.
Yeah, my observation and just getting to know all those guys over the past couple of years, I'm somebody that's pretty huge on core values and like living out what your core values are and your integrity and such. And there's something about the high altitude guys and the elevation guys that I cannot define with words, but you just know, and you trust them, and you know that the bonds there are absolutely genuine. And even watching all of you guys from afar, the Guerrilla Gang bond over the past couple of years, like it's huge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of feel it, and I didn't really know at the time, but like Vinny, Vinny, he's the man. But I feel like I was kind of like in a little testing period, and I passed that test, and it wasn't just because of my fight skill, it's how I am as a man, and my core values and what I stand for. It aligned with a lot of what they do. They're all family men, and that's one of the big things on the team is, looking out for each other and and your family.
And you can see it. It's so transparent. And like, even just for those that are listening right now, and if you follow any of the Elevation Fight Team guys, any of the coaches, any of the fighters, and you follow their social media, they wear their hearts on their sleeves and put everything on full display. And I think that gives them a competitive edge. They are not afraid to be, to show what the definition of, for the dudes at least, what real masculinity is these days.
Yeah. Nobody on the team really shies away from it. And the thing is, no one's out looking for a fight. It's like street fight, stuff like that. No one's trying to, big dog people and stuff like that. But if you're disrespecting, or in any way showing harm to somebody else that doesn't deserve it, like that shit shows right up right now, and everybody's ready to go. And that's from the coaches on down. And so it's definitely a super cool niche that we got going here on the team.
Kind of speaking to some of your own personal core values, I know that I'm assuming you still are on the national board of Garrett's Fight, Down syndrome awareness. How did you come to that? And, what was your why behind that?
I haven't done a whole lot with it as of lately. I still talk to Garrett and his dad, but I had a friend of mine that was helping me at the time, and his son has Down syndrome. So that's the whole story on how I got into it. And his name's Kevin Kroger. And at first I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to like make that my deal just to get viewers and fans and people like that. But it was actually something that I do care about. And it's because some of these kids, they want to fight, they want to do normal stuff, and they fucking can do normal stuff. And a lot of times society will say, oh no, you can't do that, whatever. Not bullshit. I've seen it. And I was so we drove from Sioux Falls to, I think it was St. Louis, I think. It was one of the only commissions that would do the fight, but Garrett actually had an MMA fight. With another kid that has some disabilities and stuff too, but he had a real fight, and seeing the bond that him and his dad have, and then being able to fight, even though everybody told him no, and to see how much pressure that it was on his dad too, because if something went wrong, it was on his dad, you know, on his guardian. And they're both like, F that. Garrett trained for it. He still trains, and his dad helps him out, and Garrett wants to do this stuff. It should be more of a deal, and everybody should care about it. And it's a lifetime deal, you know, showing support for some of my friends, you know.
Yeah, I like what you said there, and it was kind of a blink and you missed it comment, but you didn't do this and become involved with this for the sake of clicks. You did it because you believed that it was, you believed genuinely in the cause is about.
Yeah. And at the time, it was purely to spread awareness, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, February 4th, you were originally supposed to go to Korea. How pissed off are you about that?
I'm not too pissed off about it. So, like, it was going to be a cool trip, right? It was going to be a cool trip, go to South Korea, see the world, all that stuff, which is cool, super cool. It was in his home, you know, in his backyard. But now this guy's got to come into my backyard. I fought at the Apex so many times. You know, let's go. You're in my backyard now. We're in America. This is how we do shit. You're about to run up against an American wrestler. I got some redemption shit to do. This is for me. This fight has nothing to do with my opponent. Like, you know, I respect all of his skills and everything like that, but this is a redemption fight for me. You know, hopefully a redemption next few years. It's hard because I'm growing so much being around these guys at high altitude and the coaches. It's transforming me a little bit, and I don't want to get ahead of myself and be like, oh, I'm a changed fighter, this and that. Like that's not the case. But I've been able to change a few small things that will make me a better fighter as long as I hold up my end of the deal, my end of the contract, and I go out there to actually fight. My last fight was not the case. I didn't go out there to win the fight. I just kind of showed up and expected shit to go my way, and everything went wrong. And I didn't react in the proper way.
Yeah, you broke a pinky toe during that last fight too, didn't you?
Not during the fight. I broke it 20 minutes before the fight. Got it. Hitting pads, and then I broke my left hand in the first round, which sucks. And in most people, like, and I heard it a lot after the fight, like, oh well, shit, what do you expect with the broken pinky and a broken hand, or a broken toe and a broken hand? Like, you know, it's all right that you lost that fight. And I'm like, no, it's not all right. We train to be the baddest motherfuckers, and to, you know, that doesn't matter. You'll ask Cody or Vinny. You'd be like, oh yeah, I broke my hand, broke my finger. It's their words. Fuck that hand. Fuck that finger. You have a job to do right now. You know?
Yes.
And at first I'm like, well, you know, I can still feel it though, but we're training for that, to have that pain. And even now you have these little nagging injuries and stuff like that. And you're figuring out how to deal with that in real time. Right. It's not something you think about. You kind of bury it and learn how to fight with it. And so that was a huge lesson that I learned in the last fight. I let those things get to me, and I was thinking about those when I should have been thinking about winning the fight.
Do you ever wonder if having such a high like the win over William Knight just before that fight, and having that low, just kind of how that might have messed with your head a little bit too in between?
Absolutely. Because that was my William Knight fight was my first camp at high altitude, elevation fight team. And so we were on this high. We won that fight. We did what we needed to do. Then I go into this last fight, and it's a totally different fight. And you can't treat one fight like another fight. Totally different fighters. It was a different weight class, even heavyweight to light heavyweight. So it's definitely a different feel, and I feel like I kind of got into that cruise control mode, where I said, as long as I do everything I did in my last fight, I'll be fine. And that's not always the case. Sometimes the win will be kind of handed to you. You can kind of be a little more comfortable and do this and that, and sometimes you have to go get it. And that last fight is where I needed to go get it. And I failed to do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to throw strategy out there or anything, but your next opponent is 6'4", and he's primarily a striker, and I'm sure that's kind of weighing on your mind a little bit as far as strategy goes, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's 6'4", he's a striker, he's got these little baby hips. I mean, I should be able to take him down all day long, but again, we're in the UFC, and people train for people like me as well. Especially now, you get the Russians coming up, and they're doing all this wrestling stuff. They're forced to train it now. So I don't expect any easy takedowns or anything like that, which it'll probably be easy anyways. But I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting to have to work for it and set stuff up, and and vice versa. It's a fight, and I'm going out there to play this fight game, which before I was like last time I just kind of showed up, and that happens sometimes. It can't happen this time. It won't happen this time. I'm going out there. My mind's made up already. I'm going out there. I'm playing that game, and I'm going to win that game. And I have to put all these tools that I have towards that night, and I have to keep reminding myself because. We, as fighters, we get so much pressure from the outside world, social media, our coaches, even our spouses. And you kind of like, oh, I got to do this. This person said this, that. But I've been making a routine before I train. No, this is for me. This one's for me. Yes. All my next fights are for me, because at the end of the day, that's who has to go out there in that fight. I can't. I can't put it on my coaches or my dad or this and that, expecting them to get me emotionally ready to go for this fight or something, and I figured out that it's all on me, and I can easily get myself ready for this fight, emotionally in that time. Obviously I have like a mental coach and everything like that. But I'm saying, like, at the end of the day, right before we walk out there, I have to make that decision that I'm going to go out there and fight, and I'm going to go out there and win, and I'm going to try to win instead of just playing it safe and hoping for a quick knockout or something like that. No, that could be the case, or it could be a 15-round grinder dogfight. So being prepared for all of it.
Yes, yeah. And it doesn't hurt things that one of your training partners happens to have one of the best double leg takedowns in the world with Curtis. Mm-hmm. But one of your other training partners wanted me to ask, how often does he judo throw you through the air?
One time. I'm assuming this was Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got me a really good one time.
You can rib him about that.
There's a second time where he had a decent one, but it didn't hurt, so it didn't count. The first one though, the first time he did it, I'm in the air and I hit my back. I'm like, oh my, what was that? It was super. I had to give him props right there. Like, nice throw. But yeah, that hasn't happened again. And it won't happen again.
He's one of the most like low-key funny guys ever.
Oh yeah. 100%. I think that was because he used to be a cop. I mean, you got to have a little humor being a cop. I could see Zach sipping coffee, talking shit with a donut.
From the ice bath.
Yeah.
That's great. That's fantastic. So outside of the ring, what are some of your hobbies?
Hunting, fishing, hanging with my family, stuff like that. Yeah, I like shooting guns. Also off-roading. I love my truck. Everybody knows me. Will tell you I love my goddamn truck. That breaks down every now and then because I beat the shit out of it. But yeah, it's what I do, I guess. A little bit of video games, but even on my video games, I play like truck games, like simulation truck games, and so
So you did some winter camping on New Year's. How did that go?
It was good. It was a little cold, but we managed. We were gonna stay the night, but we decided not to because we went out there. Probably left Denver at like 11 a.m. or something like that. Then got up there and all that. But if we were to stay overnight, I had training at 8:30 in the morning the next day. We would have to get up at like 4 a.m., tear down camp, then hike back and then drive back. And we're like, that's not a good setup for a good week of training. So we ixnayed that and just kind of hung out. We hiked up there. It was a really good hike. Camped for a few hours, then hiked back, and it was a good experience. And a lot of the reason we go up to altitude is for conditioning reasons.
Yeah.
Breathing, and anytime you're getting that altitude in is good. And I can actually feel, from that trip alone, how much better my lungs felt the next few days.
Yeah. What's it like for you having been training in Denver? Because you've been there a little over a year now. What's it like going to another climate and doing something like light cardio or some fight training in another climate after you've been in that elevation? Do you notice a difference?
Not really. You might when you're warming up and stuff like that, but in the fight, I don't notice it too much in the fight. I still get tired and everything like that. But what it does do, because obviously you can work harder when you have that. So you actually work harder when you come down to sea level or anything like that. But you can last longer. Your body can last longer. Your endurance is there. You know how to calm yourself down. Your recovery is a shorter time, stuff like that. The little things that really, really matter. But yeah, you're still going to feel tired. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm training at altitude. I'm going to be good. I'm not going to get tired. No, you're going to get tired. It's just, you're going to know how to deal with it better.
Yeah. Management. So,
yeah. Yep.
So the new high altitude location, I have to make it out there. I'm going to try and make it out there around springtime. So I'm going to have to run into you whenever I get out there. Yeah.
It's a super cool facility.
Yes.
Lots of room. It's new, shiny. Mats are new cage. And it's a super cool deal because when you have a new facility like that, people, there's like an instant, like motivating factor of having that new facility. It just makes you want to get better. And the team's super happy right now with the new facility.
Yeah. It's like new pair of shoes or new gym clothes, right?
Yeah, just instant confidence boost and everything like that. It worked out good, and it turned out really good, and they did it in a pretty short amount of time, so it's kind of impressive. Yeah,
for sure. So, Devin, what is your advice, given the state of the world right now, for making the world a better place?
I would say shut down social media. Everything. Shut it down. Take us back, 20, 30 years. Texting's cool, stuff like that. But I feel like social media is one of the things that's most wrong with the world, even though I use it every day. I look at it every day and stuff like that. But if we didn't have it, people would have to get out in the world and actually experience stuff. And there wouldn't be as much bullshit because you can bullshit so easily on Instagram. You have these people living these lavish lifestyles, and you take that camera away outside that lens. These motherfuckers are living on an air mattress and this and that, staying in a house with 20 other people. It's fake, and it's creating a fake society. And I feel like it's a little bit giving the wrong message to especially kids and saying, oh, you have to do this, or you can do this and that. Like, it makes it hard for a kid or a younger person to decide on their own with all this extra influence, especially with all the sex. You can't go on Instagram without seeing titties.
Right.
For no reason. And it's normal. Even good girls or good women, whatever you want to call them, that are loyal and this and that, they're still showing titties, and it's normal. It's accepted, which, I'm all for women's rights and women doing whatever the hell they want, but it's not what they're saying it is. It's a quick fix or a quick reaction. It's a quick reaction. And everybody loves titties. So obviously they're getting likes.
Right.
But, even women, like whatever. So people are getting likes on stuff they shouldn't get likes on. And then they're getting this confidence, this false confidence, that doesn't relay in real life. You can be an all-star on social media, and then you go out real life and you're a shitty person and you don't have skills and this and that. If social media shut down, you wouldn't know what to do. I don't think that's all right. I think people should be able to live and actually have some skill. If a man or woman doesn't have any skill, I mean, what are they?
Jesus, dude. Okay, I got to tell you something. I'm not a bullshitter. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I shoot it straight. So, I've had a god awful week. We had some stuff happen at home, had some stuff happen with a friend, regardless. But I had almost the same exact conversation today, except I was on your side of it. And okay. I was talking with some friends of mine, and I was talking about how a couple of years ago, I took a social media fast. It was from Christmas until the day after New Year's. And the whole point is to find more meaningful engagement with people and interact with people in the real world again. So when I logged back on the day after that week and a half long fast, I logged back on. The first thing I did was purge like 350 people from Facebook alone, because I'm realizing the importance of more meaningful interaction, more meaningful engagement, keeping your circle small but impactful. So it kind of hits on everything you just said. And I shit you not, dude, I just had that conversation last night. So serendipitous, brother.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody sees it and everybody knows it. It's gotten to the point where there's even warnings about having too much social media in your life and the stress that it puts on you and the depression that it can cause.
Right.
Like, if you challenge somebody to go, say you go on social media for 2 hours, you have to be on social media for 2 hours straight. That's all you do. You're just on social media, scrolling, whatever. By the time you get done with that, you're going to be like, you're not going to feel good about yourself.
Right.
You have all these, especially, you have all these people, good looking people with money, this and that. They're doing things a certain way. And you realize, oh, I'm not doing that. Oh, I need to do that. I need to get better at posting. I need to know how to make reels. I need to know how to do this and try to keep up with the social media, which is good. People are making careers out of it and stuff like that. But it messes with people, and especially young people, people that have anxiety issues already or low self-esteem issues already. I don't believe that social media as a whole is helping. And now on the other hand of that, there are a lot of good accounts on social media, a lot of motivational stuff and staying healthy and diets and just all around, normal people doing normal stuff. I like that. Farming's become a trend on social media. You got city people buying farms and chickens and shit. And, so I like that part of it. And there's a positive part of it, but as a whole, I think if it went away, we'd be a better society.
It's crazy for guys like you, like fighters like you and public figures, and guys like me that are trying to, push a creative endeavor like a podcast. Yeah. It's a necessary evil, and it's something that sometimes we have to stop and make peace with, because it's like, man, I don't want to, I talk about this in regards to my podcast quite frequently. I'm like, I have 2 rules, and my rules are, I won't talk politics and I won't talk religion, because my belief is everybody's a person. You are an individual. So is everybody else. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to engage in the low hanging fruit that just for the sake of clicks. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I would rather talk about having meaningful conversations and be as much of a listener as I am a speaker. And I think that's a lot of what social media has erased. It's erased people's ability to have meaningful conversations. It's like, follow my shit and believe my shit, or you're the enemy kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's just so much content now.
Yes.
And it's watered down. And, you know, there's so many, you know, and I'm getting in your realm a little bit, but there's so many podcasts and people doing shows and this and that. They're not all good.
Right. I know.
And
yeah.
And, you know, as a human, you're like, oh, they're on social media. They got views. They're probably right. In a lot of cases, like, no, that's fucking, you know, like, the Tate.
Andrew Tate. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he says whatever he says. And I don't even know a lot of his, I don't follow him. But people live by what he says, and same with Joe Rogan and this and that. And it's, you know, people are forgetting to think for themselves. I mean, I know a whole community of people that, if I said something that was for Joe Rogan or against what Joe Rogan said, I know exactly what the reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, people are forgetting to kind of have their own idea on things and come up with stuff on their own. Or maybe I'm just an asshole that's out of date, but
no, brother. We are two peas in a pod. We're two assholes that are out of date. So, dude, I absolutely love this conversation. And I'm so glad that you and I are connecting on all this stuff. And we finally made this happen.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm happy to be on. I love talking a little bit.
Dude, I do too. What is your Instagram handle for my listeners?
At Brown Bear UFC. After I get done shitting on Instagram.
Yeah. Everybody, Devin just shit on Instagram. So go follow him on Instagram. Let's double his follower count just because.
Hey, it's 2023. That's what we do.
That's exactly what we do. But that's the power of cognitive dissonance. It's having the ability to hold these two thoughts in your mind and not totally have those thoughts compete with one another. Just coexist.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But for real, man, I am so happy we finally got to connect. I'm proud to call you a friend. Thank you for doing the show. I'm excited to see what's next. I do feel like there are some great things coming for you and your teammates. It's like watching the chimney before Santa Claus comes down. You know something big is about to happen with watching the Gorilla Gang. It's just a matter of it happening, right?
Yeah, it's like the Bulls right before Jordan hit that sweet spot. You know what I
mean? Well, Devin Clark, thank you very much for doing the show. The world's a better place with you in it, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on. Great conversation. Great show. Appreciate you.
Once again, I want to thank my friend Devin Brown Bear Clark for being on the show today. Make sure you give him a follow on Instagram at Brown Bear UFC. Make sure you give Elevation Fight Team a follow on Instagram, and also follow High Altitude Martial Arts based out of Denver, Colorado on Instagram. They're great people, always great guests of the show. While you're following them, make sure you give Caught on the Mic a follow on all forms of social media: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also visit me at www.caughtonthemic.com. Go back to Spotify, go back to Apple Podcasts, listen to some past episodes because we have some exciting things in store for 2023. I can't wait to share them with you guys. This has been Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. I'm Michael Clark. Until next time, thank you.